More than 35,000 families have fled an armed conflict in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo, are in dire need of food, water and medicine. United Nations has warned while the elections recently held in the Democratic Republic of the Congo were largely peaceful, the security and humanitarian situation in the east has further deteriorated. Let's now bring in Dr. Alexander Rusero from the Institute of Pan-African Narratives. Doctor, a very good afternoon to you. What is your take on the current situation as well as the displaced individuals?
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. The situation in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo is worrisome, especially coming at the background of a world that is commemorating a Refugees Day. So it is actually a paradox that as much as Africa in general and Southern Africa in particular must make strides towards accommodating and even eradicating the crisis of refugees, we are actually having them on an increase, especially also with regards to displacements. So it's very unfortunate because all the efforts that AU and SADC have put in place, they are somehow kind of hitting some brick wall, and there has not been a breakthrough with regards to meaningful peace in Eastern DRC since around 2013.
And Doctor, what needs to happen now? I mean, what type of aid as well as assistance, I mean, can there be from various countries, particularly in the SADC region, or if whether or not we need assistance from any of the regional countries?
Yes, what is required actually is sincerity with regards to fulfilling the peace architecture that has already been put in place. Because it's not like mechanisms towards the creation of humanitarian corridors to facilitate the provisions of assistance are not there. They have been put in place for as early as 2013. But I think it's high time we speak truth to power with regards to the conflict in Eastern DRC. Rwanda has been complicit of aiding this conflict, but unfortunately, it has not been charged at the level of any legal jurisdiction. These so remain opinions, but even the UN has expressed the complicity of Rwanda in this conflict. So the whole idea is to give peace a chance and to give the mechanisms, the mediation efforts that have been put in place by the AU and the SADC, I think a new lease of life to revert back to the 2013 Peace, Security and Cooperation Framework for the DRC and the region that was put in place then. Then you also have some efforts that were put in place by the president of Angola and the former president of Kenya in mediating between DRC and Rwanda, because you cannot separate what is taking place in Eastern DRC with the invisible hands and fingerprints which points to Kigali. So unfortunately, it's the masses, the people who suffer, and the elites who for most of the time are behind the scenes of this conflict. They are living comfortably within their trinkets and jinkets of power in their mansions.
Let's talk about the situation, particularly around those who have been displaced, Doctor. I mean, what are some of the alternatives for them if they're continually having to be moved from one place to the next?
The real alternative is to try to nip the conflict in the bud. And the conflict can only be nipped in the bud by putting security mechanisms that are aimed at repelling the rebels that are gaining ground, that are dispossessing and displacing people. So there has to be a deployment. The last deployment that SADC made was in December 2023. There has to be a full-blown deployment by SADC, by EAC. But the powers that be involved directly and indirectly by this conflict, they are not being sincere to each other. And the problem with the diplomacy is that It does not stop conflict, and diplomacy takes time. It's not a one-day initiative. So the whole idea is we have to be truthful that all diplomatic initiatives are failing. Let's confront this beast by its horns. Let's deploy, let's fight them. Let's engage in a full-blown war. Because it is only through a war that peace can be birthed. Otherwise, a peace process without war, because we are fighting war, I don't think we are going to succeed as a region and as a continent.
And then in terms of the fact that, Doctor, the elections that were recently held in the Democratic Republic of Congo were declared as being largely peaceful. The security as well as the humanitarian situation there was going to improve, as well as the incoming president there promising, of course, to further the challenges of course, the residents in the country. So let's talk about that. What happens now? Should there be mechanisms where, if you see that elections, we've just had elections in the country, should you see that elections are contested for various other means, shouldn't this be a serious issue where even the African Union can look into withholding those results before announcing them?
No, unfortunately, the idea of elections in the DRC in general, and most of African states, it's very detached with the context of this conflict. This conflict is more than issues of elections. This conflict is more than ethnicity. This conflict is an invisible global imperial designs where this war did not start today, remember. So there are some global imperial designs with regards to certain big powers hailing from the global north. They want the DRC to be exactly where it is so that they benefit from the chaos with regards to plundering the Democratic Republic of Congo of its resources. So it's not much about the Tshisekedi victory that was pronounced recently, but it's all about priority. The sad part is that this is taking place in Africa, and as you remember, Africa is regarded as a second-class continent. That's why we are being made to give prominence to issues of the Russo-Ukraine conflict, the Israeli-Palestine conflict. Yet all these two conflicts combined together, the conflict in Eastern DRC outweigh them in terms of gravity of the people who have been displaced, of the people who have been killed, because almost 6 million people have been killed now ever since the conflict in DRC started. So it's a matter of really saying what needs to be done. What needs to be done firstly is to confront the colonial encroachment. There are invisible hands of coloniality in DRC. But more importantly, the geopolitics, Rwanda, Uganda, they must be directly involved if we are sincere to end this war, because more often than not, they have been accused of harboring M23 rebels and other rebels that would then encroach via their porous borders to destabilize Eastern DRC. So it goes beyond elections, because remember, the president in DRC, since Laurent Kabila took power, he has never been effectively in charge of all the territory we call Democratic Republic of Congo. Some warlords are still in charge. They even extract and collect rents from the provinces or areas that they are effectively in charge. The whole idea was that when the Congo crisis started in 1997, which was nipped in the bud by Zimbabwe jointly with Angola and Namibia, the intention was to balkanize the DRC into 4 or 5 states. And this failed. And these are some of the unforgivable sins that the likes of Angola, Zimbabwe, and Namibia continue to suffer today, because they stopped what happened in Libya in DRC. So for as long as the AU and SADC and EAC remain incapacitated, we must brace for worse situations.
All right, Doctor, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for that. That is, of course, Dr. Alexander Rusero, the convener of the IPAN.